I am drawing some horses and I will be inking them with ink. Duh. Sorry, English is my second language. So it will be an ink line work. I don't usually do inked line works. I want to make it simple, but at the same time I want it to look good, like a good line work. Also, this video is sponsored by me. Check out my art shop, link in the description. Before I started, I made the thumbnail on digital. I used Clip Studio Paint on a Surface Pro tablet for my digital works, by the way. Sometimes I like to do the thumbnails digitally because it's easy to move elements around and add colors just to test quickly the concepts. It can be very convenient for planning and illustration. So once I got the thumbnail I liked, I decided to draw it on mixed media paper. I knew I wanted it to be an inked line work, but it's easier to work out the anatomy and poses of the horses in pencil. I wanted to make sure I had the shapes I wanted before moving on to the inking. With the drawing, I started with the lines of action first, just to establish the main movement, and then I started the construction of the horses. I always start with basic geometrical shapes and then I define them to make them look like what I am trying to paint. I don't usually include the drawing section in my videos. Most of the time I start the video when the drawing is finished. Sometimes I like to place the drawing pad in my lap when I'm drawing, so it's hard to record the actual drawing process. But I try to in this video. I wanted to do an illustration for the 14th of July. It's the National Day of France. Horses are not the national animal of France. Their national animal is actually the rooster. So it would have made more sense if I drew rooster. But I've drawn a rooster in the past for the national holiday as well. So I wanted to do something different this time. I went with horses because I like horses. I've been drawing and practicing horses the past few years, I'd say. So it's good to include them in a non-cowboy illustration. And also, horses can represent freedom, so it's not a bad choice for an animal for France, in my humble opinion. I drew 3 horses because I'm making like a play from the French flag. It's blue, white, and red, so I wanted each horse to represent a color of the flag. I just wanted to challenge myself to do an illustration different from my usual works, so I went with ink and with line work. In general, I like the horses. I'm happy with the drawing. I'm not the best at drawing horses, but I think they came out looking well. Maybe I could have made their heads a bit bigger. These are the inks I will be using, my Sennelier inks. They are very good quality paints. I start inking on the right side with the blue. At first, I was trying to make very thin lines. I was being very cautious about the inking, but I felt I was being too perfectionist. When I think about the kind of line work illustrations that I like, I tend to like the very bold lines and the change between thin and heavy lines. I just find that look to be much more interesting than a look where each line is the same width. So I decided to be brave and be a bit bolder with the inking, doing different widths with the same brush stroke. And if I made a mistake, I figured I could just fix it with whiteout, or painting on top, or by simply scanning the piece and finishing it digitally. so no matter what, it wouldn't be a waste of an illustration. In this case, the drawing helped a lot because I knew exactly where I wanted each line to go, so it was just a matter of following the drawing. So the flag is blue, white, red. I finished the blue horse and now moving on to the white horse. But since the paper is white, I can't just leave the horse as the white of the paper. Maybe if the background was black, that would have been a nice look, but since I'm sticking with white as the background color, I had to come up with another idea to represent the white. So I chose to use a walnut color and to dilute it with water to make it look like an off-white, like a shadow of a white object, if that makes sense. I used the same brush and tried to keep the same line look on each horse. I'd say that this middle horse is my favorite of them. It just looks like a nicer drawing. And maybe it's because his head is in better proportion to the body in comparison to the other horses. It's just slightly bigger, but it works in my mind. Also, the pose helps. He looks like he's running or jumping, and I like how horses look in that pose. The final and red horse. Now that I look at it, it seems like I made his legs a bit chunky compared to the rest of his body. They just look a bit strange. I enjoyed doing the hair, but I feel I may have gotten carried away with it, with the definition of the strands in both the blue and the red horse. When I see the white horse, they work better because there's less lines, so I think I should have gone for something like that in all of them. Something to remember when doing another ink illustration. Many times, less is more. In the thumbnail I did, it has the horses in color, but I also used some black lines, so I moved on to adding those black lines in the final version. My black ink is also from the same brand, Sennelier. I want to use the blacks just to add some definition, or more like some focus on the faces of the horses. I don't want to cover at all the color line work that I did. In fact, I wanted to show through on the blacks as well. I'm just playing around trying to come up with something different. Like I said, I really wanted to create something different than my usual works, just for fun. And I think the black worked really well, especially on the white horse. Now the diluted walnut color does look like a shade of white. The contrast really helped it. Also, it helps to add black only on their heads. I think it helps bring focus on the three of them and not so much on the chunky legs. I used the same brush as well because I wanted the same line width as the color, and this way I was sure some of the previous color line would still show through. I wouldn't be covering it all with a thicker brush stroke since it's the same line width variation. Once my inking was done and I waited to be sure that it dried completely, I went in and erased all of the pencil drawing lines that were left. Normally I don't mind when I have some of the drawing lines coming through, especially on my sketchbook inks, but this time I felt like I wanted to try it this way. I don't even know if they are noticeable in the camera, I try to draw lightly at first so it doesn't make a strong mark on the paper, just in case I have to erase and do corrections to the drawing. And this is the finished piece. Very different to the finished artworks I normally do. No rendering, just line work. And I like the look. Bleu, blanc, rouge.